it's I think the brain works that way too, because I told you my first game seemed so hard to make, and
Mm.
but then the second game was easier, and the third game was so much easier, and
Hey, you're listening to the Player Layer podcast. I'm Ivan Alexiev, and today I'm very happy to have with me Adrian Adamescu. He is most famously known for Sagrada and all of the Sagrada content, most recently Sagrada Artisans, which is a legacy game. And we got to talk a little bit about that. We also talked about designing with a partner and or co-designing games. And it was just so great to talk with him about making a legacy game, about making evergreen games, and to hear from his experience, which is a lot. Thank you for listening.
we're technically working together.
We are technically
We're
working
technically
together.
working together now.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. Can you tell me about how you got into board game design? Where did that start?
How did that start? That is a very interesting story because I never thought of board games as having necessarily a designer. And one time so board games for us started when I got married. So we were looking for a hobby to do together, and we walked into a toy store and we picked up a Blockus. So that was our like first introduction. I played, the classics as a kid, Yahtzee and backgammon and Uno and things like that. But then when we got married, I started playing with my wife, and Blockhouse was one of our first. And we started playing it online. One day when we played online, it used to be that you could play it online in these rooms, and a bunch of people came to watch the game I was currently playing, and I wondered, hey, why is everybody here? And they asked, well, do you know who you're playing against? And I said, no. Well, you're playing against the designer of Blockus.
Wow.
So that's why everybody was watching our game. I don't remember what I did, if I lost or won, because I was so excited and kept asking him questions. So I think that planted the seed in my head that there's, like a person behind the design. Because I always thought of, like there's a company or, who designs this, but didn't really think that there's, like a brain behind it. And then later on, a couple of years after that, we were playing a game that had the like biography of the designer at the back. He was a first-time game designer, and then I asked my wife, what if I was to design a game? Because we were like the hobby was growing for us, and we were buying more and more games and getting, especially when our first daughter was born. We weren't as free to go out in the evenings, movies, or because we had to be there with the kid, with the child, and it became our favorite hobby to just sit down after the baby goes to sleep and start playing games. And that designer biography at the back got me thinking, and asked my wife, if I was to design a board game, what would you like it to be? And she said architecture, because she was working as an architect. Now she's a stay-at-home mom with the kids, but so that was kind of her passion, and I wanted to impress her with designing a game. And I tried really hard, and it was very tough. The first game took me 1 or 2 years. I think I jumped. It was too heavy. It had a lot of iterations, and then I started designing lighter games, and it ended up working well. And I met Daryl Andrews, that is local here. He just signed his first game. He didn't have one published yet, just signed it. And I'm like, ooh, a game designer in my town. And we started meeting and designing games together. And yeah, that was how it all started, because of biography at the back of the box, and because I got to play Blockus with the designer, it planted that seed in my head.
Yeah. What were you doing at the time? Like, what was your job, or what were your plans at
Yeah, I was doing my PhD. Uh, you know, I always wanted to. I liked science, and I always wanted to teach, and I liked teaching as a PhD student. I also got, like teaching hours for tutorials and labs and things like that. And I always thought that I'm gonna try to become a teacher and at or a professor um, at like at the college level or maybe high school level. And um, those so while I was doing my PhD, it was computational. I'm a chemist, so a computational chemist, but those calculations were taking hours and hours and hours, and I had a lot of time to kill between those calculations, and I just started thinking about games while I was waiting for evenings to come so I can play with my wife. But the fact that um, you know I kind of challenged myself to create a game. Ideas were slowly coming, and between those calculations, I was also working on games on the side. And while I was taking my lunch breaks and stuff, I used to meet with there was a very close board game cafe
hmm
by the university where I worked, and I used to meet with Daryl for an hour or two to test things too once things got going. But that's how it started. So I worked as a researcher for a bit, on the side, but this um, game business took off, and yeah, I enjoy what I'm doing now
And currently, is it
more than
your
probably I would have done teaching. Or
yeah? Currently, game design is your full time job. Is that right?
yes, I would say almost full time. I get these research contracts every now and then. My last one ended last year in December, so but I haven't since. But I've been doing some research on the side, some tutoring on the side, just to kind of fill in. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's full time now.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Daryl Andrews and working with him. Can you tell me about working by yourself on a game and working with a partner? Because what I noticed when like getting ready for this interview and when I went through your games is like your top 11 games on BGG are with Daryl, and you guys have made just an amazing team. But also, I
Yeah,
saw that
yeah,
your first published game, at least the first one that I could find, which is Rival Kings in 2016, was you did by yourself. Can you tell me about whether you
yeah,
prefer working with a partner, what it's like working
yeah.
with a partner, what are the pros and cons, that all of that stuff?
Yeah, I really enjoy working with a partner, and Daryl has been great. I'm actually saddened that he's moving from the region, so he'll be an hour and a half or two away. Um, but yeah, it's been great, and we still have some projects together that we're trying to work on and finishing up. And but yeah, I think co-design for me at least is the best way to go. Just having somebody to test your ideas with right away, the back and forth, the communication and the exchange of ideas is is really incredible. So I think two are way better than one. So yes, the game that I did, was a that I did first, Rival Kings. It was a lighter game too. So, but if I embark on a bigger journey, I would prefer a co-designer just because we can test right away and bounce things off each other, and it even gives you like for with some of the co-designers that I work, I meet with one every Wednesday, with the other one every Thursday, and you have that week in between to prepare and add things and then test and then refine and do all that stuff. So, yeah, I prefer it. I think it's, for me at least, is the best way to design a game.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me what a typical board game design day looks like for you?
So my day starts, make breakfast for the kids, get them ready for school, take them to school, and then I kind of have my coffee with my wife for half an hour or so, and then I just head upstairs and I'm in meetings with co-designers, or I just do stuff by myself, preparing things. I use Tabletop Simulator a lot. I think I saw I passed more than 1,000 hours or some 2,000 hours. I don't know, because it keeps track
Mm-hmm.
um, of your hours. So I was amazed to look back. Oh, really? I've done that many hours on it already. And it was only during the pandemic that I started using Tabletop Simulator. I forced myself to learn it, and um, it helped a lot quickly. So hey, if you want to invest in something and you're just starting up as a designer, your first game or something, it helps to put it on Tabletop Simulator, because there you can, or Tabletopia or something, there you can just show publishers and play it with them. And so yeah, it's a lot of those meetings too. I have to keep track. I have meetings with this publisher this day and this day, and meetings with co-designers. And then I usually work till 5 or 6 or so, and that's kind of my day. Full work day of game design.
Yeah. Do you think it's important for as a game designer to play games, and what's the ratio like between games that you play and games that you design?
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you can't be an author without reading books or something. You have to know what's out there. You have to know mechanisms and what people like, what kind of games win awards, and, you know, um, and we play games as a family quite a lot. We bring games to whatever events we go to. We're the ones who always bring games, our family. And I have 4 kids, and it's such a beautiful thing to just sit down and play a game with the family, after a hard day of work, or after you stared in front of a screen the whole day. You just want to disconnect. And sure, we could watch a movie, or you know play video games or something, but I do prefer the sitting at the table with the family. And yeah, I'm really starting to look more for 6-player games and things that can play in 6 players, because of the 4 kids, so we can all play. And it's a beautiful hobby. It's our favorite hobby, I would say. And that and hiking. So
Mm.
between the two, we either go for a hike or play a board game. Depends on the weather too. But we live in Canada, so there's a lot of cold weather.
That's awesome. You're very lucky to have a family that likes board games as well. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
and
Yeah, and like, I don't think I would have done this without the encouragement of my wife. She was my first playtester. She was, she could have said, just go out and look for a job and do, while I was still doing my PhD and things like. But she was supportive of what I was doing and testing and encouraging. So that that helped. That helped a lot too.
yeah, yeah, it's very similar for me, except my girlfriend doesn't play games, but she was encouraging. Like she didn't.
Mm.
I was almost expecting her to stop me, because for me, I decided to go full time with
Right.
it in 2020. Um, because
Uh-huh.
I used to be a full time musician, and I didn't have a job anymore because of COVID, and I had been kind
Oh, I
of
see.
making games as a hobby for like 2 years, and then I was like, okay, well,
Hmm.
I'll try and go full time, and I eventually started a company that does playtesting and development um, for
Yeah,
different
that's
publishers.
awesome. Yeah, you need that support, I think, and encouragement. If your partner does that, it's amazing
Yeah, yeah. I
to
talked with
yeah.
just a funny story. I talked with Andy Steiger, he's the designer of Targi,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a very similar story as
Target, yeah.
you. Yeah, he said that the reason he designed Turkey was that him and his wife used to play games and go to the movies and hang out. But when his wife got pregnant,
Yeah.
she needed to go to bed earlier, and they
Ah,
stopped going out. And so that's why he started
yeah.
working on Targi. And it was,
Yeah, and I think it's such a good family hobby to have as well. And maybe I don't know, do you play a little bit with your girlfriend? Is like lighter games or something, or she's totally turned
yeah.
off by games?
No, she enjoys. So like we played My City with her last
Yeah.
year, which was really, which
Ooh,
is a
okay,
great
like the full
game.
campaign.
Yeah, we played the full campaign. That's one of the few that we've
Yeah.
played. And the other game she's really good at is Scythe, which isn't. It's not a
Ooh.
light game. It's
Oh, so
just one
you play
that.
heavy games.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not.
yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
reason she plays Scythe is
So
that
she's a
was,
gamer.
yeah, that it was the first game, I think, like first heavier game that I got. So I was very enthusiastic about it, and so she learned it, and
Right.
we've probably played it over 60 or 70 times. We've played it a lot,
Oh,
um,
okay.
but we haven't played it in a long time
We
ago.
had a similar experience. We had a similar experience with the Agricola. It was kind of our first heavier game, and we played it, dozens of times as well. We enjoyed it quite a lot. We got the small two-player one and the bigger one, and between the two, I think we did at least 50.
Hmm.
So uh, yeah, very very enjoyable, and that's a good one to get people into heavier games because kind of everything makes sense in that game. It's still one of my favorites. You get wood, you build fences. You get two sheep, you can have a baby and get three sheep. And you want to feed your family? Okay, well then you better dig up some carrots or have a cow. So everything kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
So it does. It's a heavier game, but it doesn't seem so heavy because it's very intuitive. You plant, uh, you sow, you reap, the usual stuff that you're used to.
yeah. That's how I feel with the games that I've played of yours. All of them
Hmm.
feel like they make sense and like they're very clean design, and I feel like that's something that you go for. Is that like a conscious decision?
Well, thank you first of all. That's I don't know if that's a conscious decision, but I like them smooth and streamlined. And when I design with Daryl, I'm kind of the one with that wants it the smooth and streamlined, and it has to you know be like a well-oiled machine. Kind of, it has to feel smooth. And I think he's the more adventurous one who wants to introduce like this and that, and so he plays heavier games than me, but I yeah, I like them to be smooth and clean.
Yeah, and
But
that
maybe because I play with the family too. I don't want to explain rules all the time that don't are not intuitive. And if you have three crystals and you put them in this and it turns out this, and like it has to I don't
yeah, for sure. And it makes I personally also really like I really appreciate a clean game. I like playing. Sometimes I like playing. Even like when you mentioned six-player games, the first game that came to mind was the old Dune game, which is not
Mm.
clean at all. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
phasers,
there's
a
all
lot of
these rules upon
asymmetry.
rules. And
Yeah,
right.
but I really appreciate a clean game, and in my designs I prefer getting them as clean as possible because it just feels it's easier to explain, it's easier to demo, it's
Yeah.
um,
And I mean, it depends on your audience, because I play with the family gamers and with my family and with people that don't play heavy games. So, and uh, also, I don't know, I just get tired if I play a heavy game. To me, like, the or that has all these things going on, I lose my focus. So
Yeah.
um,
I've found
so yeah,
that.
I design the things that I like to play.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really good philosophy to have, and I find that more and more friends that I talk to who have been in the hobby for a long time, I feel like they are gradually moving towards lighter games because I feel like when you first get into the hobby, you're like, oh, what can you have all these expectations and just like, I want a game with a
Hmm.
huge 900 hours of gameplay and a storyline and all of
Right.
these things. But then I feel like at one
Yeah.
point you're kind of like, no, I just want something that's engaging and fun and that I don't have to go back to the rulebook all the time to check things.
Every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're on BGG too, you look at the top 100, and they're usually pretty heavy games that are on there. So there's the community, the BGG community, board game community, um, likes to rate heavier games higher, and they make it on those lists. But I mean, there's something for everyone. So,
Mm.
but I'm not that person. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the family games, between a BGG rating of 2 and 3 is kind of like the sweet spot for me. Not too light, not too heavy, but that you feel like you've accomplished something and you can see. I really love games where at the end of the game you see what you've accomplished.
Hmm.
Um, you see, okay, I've built this, or I did this, or um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like those as well. Um, One thing I'm really curious about is, um, can you tell me about Sagrada Artisans and what it's like as a designer making a legacy game? What are the like difficult parts of it? What are the very cool parts?
Yeah. So Sagrada is kind of our big hit. Me and Daryl designed it, and we knew. So we did. We went through all the expansions. The game has 4 expansions, and it did well. So we thought, how can we move beyond this? And the idea of Sagrada came because of the I was thinking of the the color theorems that say that if you color a map, you can color any map on in the world using only 4 colors without them having to touch, borders. So it
Mm-hmm.
only takes, yeah. So that was kind of the idea, and now Sagrada Artisans is a legacy version of Sagrada, where we take that idea of coloring and use it to the max. So I think it's a great design. It's probably one of our best, but it was also the toughest project I ever worked on. So um, I think it design wise, it probably took more time than anything else I've invested in, and um, also I've never had a big. I played my city. I didn't do a lot of legacy games before this, but I did my city after designing the Sagrada Legacy. Thankfully, Daryl though was he's developed other legacy games before, and he was more into that stuff. And I had to watch things. But with the thing with legacy games, you don't see much online because they don't reveal too much. They don't want to spoil anything. So you kind of see the beginning and the material, but you kind of have to play some games before knowing what it's like. Um, but yeah, it was the biggest project I've ever been a part of, and but it was really fun to make, and we had such a good playtest group, like these guys that devoted time, so much time, coming every night to play test it. We wanted to play test it at full player count, see how it does. So we had a good team to work on it. So yeah, it's quite a change from because things that you decisions that you make early, and you have to think about catch up mechanics because you don't want to play a legacy game where in the first 2 or 3 games who's gonna win. He's already so things like that really make it a different experience um, designing a legacy versus just a game you can play and reset. The next time starts from zero, from scratch. So
Yeah, I find that as a game designer, I've never made a legacy game, or I've never worked on a legacy game, or even a campaign. But I
mhm,
find that from playing campaign and legacy games, I've learned a lot. Just because of that simple, like
mhm,
even in my city, you see the game going through different iterations, and you see that how there's rules added, rules removed, and you can see like
right.
this basic idea of the game, how it can go through so many different versions, because that's kind of
Yeah, and you want to make it interesting. You have to introduce something new every game. So you want to open envelopes, new rules, new stickers, new ways to play. For us, it was new windows, new tools, new like things that get added to still keep you entertained for the whole game.
mhm.
So that's interesting to think about too. Like, yes, you play the game, but you don't want it to just be the same over and over again. And at the end, okay, I felt like I played the same game
Yeah, yeah,
10 times or 20 times. Yeah, it has to introduce new material and
yeah.
keep you excited about what's coming next.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What is coming next when you pitch or start pitching? How do you decide who to pitch to? What's your pitching process like um, when it comes to publishers?
Hmm. That is, I don't know if I have a strategy there.
Mm.
So first of all, the games that I design with Daryl, he's very outgoing. I'm more the introvert. He's more the extrovert. He goes to conventions and pitches games, and I've done it more online. Trying to contact publishers online, and with my other co-designer. So the ones with Daryl are kind of, he does 95+% of the pitching because he knows everyone in the industry, and very outgoing, goes to all the shows and things. I'm more tied down with the 4 kids, and yeah, and I don't enjoy it as much. Just crowded spaces and lots of people, just I get tired. And I've been to a couple of conventions, but I enjoy, the late night when everything slows down and you just play with a few friends, and not the crowds, and you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So it's different with him, but I I like to make like a video and to send it to publishers, but I don't think I have a criteria. This publisher, I try to look at what they've done before and see if it's a fit, and if they want to play it online with me or with my co-designers. And that's kind of, I don't see it as a strategy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like, yeah, let's see what works.
Yeah. It must be easier now that you have like Sagrada, because everyone in the industry knows Sagrada. So I imagine if you contact a publisher and you
Yeah, I think
mention,
so. It opened a lot of doors. It opened a lot of doors for sure. Um, yeah,
yeah,
um, yeah. So if you have a hit, it's definitely easier. And I'm very thankful. Like, it's Sagrada was, I think, my second or third published game, and the fact that it was early. It helped in the decision for me to work full time. Because I think Sagrada, even like royalty wise that we're getting, all my other games combined still don't come close to what Sagrada is doing and the expansions and derivatives of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, it's so much easier for people to buy the same thing twice, you know. So like, when you have
give it as a
expansions of a
gift
game, when you
and
have and I saw I forget which designer, it was a board game designer. He had posted a little pie chart of his games, and out of I think 20 published games, it was two or
okay,
three that were like the majority of the pie chart for
exactly,
royalties. So I think
exactly, yeah,
I think the strategy
yeah,
there is get a hit,
yeah. I
right?
think I've seen that pie chart too.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that pie chart too. He posts every year,
yeah,
kind of his income, and it's very similar to me.
hmm
Um, So, well, once a year, like usually, thankfully, Sagrada keeps selling through the years, but that pie chart changes for, a new game comes out and you see it on that pie chart for a year, but then the next year, it's a thin slice.
yeah,
So there's things come and go, but something that is an evergreen is kind of tough um, to have. So I'm very, very thankful that that's been going.
yeah. What do you think? Why do you think Sagrada did as well as it, or is doing as well as it is? What do you think draws people to it? Do you think that you knew while you were making it that like, did you see anything like more special?
I didn't. I didn't know that Sagrada was gonna be the one that I had high hopes actually for another that did poorly.
Hmm.
Um, and but I think it's that clean, smooth design and the looks of it. Also, when we were pitching the game, a lot of people were saying, it has too many dice. It might be, expensive to produce. Um, so we got a lot of rejections even for a game like Sagrada before we signed with Floodgate, and I don't know the it's tough to sell something with so many dice, but I think also it plays really well two-player. We see a lot of couples who play it.
Hmm.
And I hear a lot of like, oh, it's my wife's favorite game, and it's kind of like our go-to game when we're just having a date or something. So like the 5-6 player expansion is probably it's still selling very well, and it was the first expansion we introduced, and I think there's that need for 5 and 6 player games out there.
Hmm.
And I'm really interested in that too. For example, I love Cascadia. I can't wait for the 5-6 player thing to come, the Cascadia expansion, so I can play it with the whole family.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a lot of that. The fact that also we went and did it digitally quite early, so you can. I think a lot of players experience it on their phone the first time, or and then maybe they go and get it. So maybe that had an impact on its sales as well. That the fact that the digital version is out there. I'm not sure if that, but yeah, maybe a lot of word of mouth probably too, and pretty pictures on social media, and
Yeah, well, it is
the
very
team.
pretty as well. Like I love that you slide in
Yeah,
the paper, and just the dice are so colorful, and I think they definitely made it feels
yeah,
deluxe to me. The base game.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And a shiny box, kind of when you give it as a gift, I'm thinking, it looks nice. It's a shiny box with stained glass. Also, it's nice that it's a location too. I think maybe people that visited that area, the Sagrada Familia that the game is based on, maybe have like a soft spot, thinking, oh yeah, that is a beautiful building. Let's play the game.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure what the allure is necessarily,
Well, there's
but
definitely a
yeah, we
trend.
still play it years later. So
Yeah, yeah. It's a game I've played a lot with, also with my brother and my and other family. And it's just a good game. It feels like an evergreen for sure. Um,
yeah, yeah, thank you. Um, we're blessed to have it, to
yeah,
have worked on it, and
yeah.
yeah,
What?
and it opened a lot of doors, like I said, as a designer too.
Yeah. What happened with the first game, the one that you mentioned about architecture and um, that was heavier?
Yeah, that turned. Yeah. So the heavier game turned into Speaky Blues eventually.
Mm,
So I worked on it and worked on it and went through like 9 iterations, and uh, yeah, eventually I teamed up with Daryl. He liked it too, and that one sold really quickly.
mm,
Um, just we had 2 offers right away, and we kind of chose one. Um, or actually, if I remember correctly, um, the one company wanted to give an answer the next day, but we already signed it, and they wanted it then. So yeah, Speakeasy Blues was what it turned into.
mm.
Um, it wasn't quite architecture that it ended up being, but it's yeah, it's a fun game. It's a meatier, heavier game, but also dice. I love dice games. I love designing dice games too.
Yeah. What are some
So
genres or mechanics that you want to try and you haven't made games using, or something that what would excite you the most?
I I've given it. I want to design
Mm-hmm.
some co-op games. I haven't touched that side of things yet. I have a few designs that are co-op, not published, not signed yet. But they're very small. They're smaller, like card games. I find card games harder to sell. Um, so when you show a publisher, at least the ones that I work with, when I show them a heavier game, they're like, "Ooh!" But the card game, they just pass. So
Mm.
um, yeah, so I want to try doing a good co-op game that is can play at higher player counts. I think that would be my next attempt.
Yeah. Co-op definitely to me feels like a challenge, especially
Hmm.
when at least I've tried designing a couple of co-op games and solo games, and I always find it difficult to have an end goal that isn't like victory points, because then
Right,
it's so hard to get the game to where you don't see the game ending before it ends. Um, and
right.
like
Yeah.
I think
In Sagrada, I did the co-op. The co-op, not the co-op. Sorry, the solo in Sagrada is you work against the AI, so you're trying to beat a score that varies, and you
mhm.
don't know. Um, and I think that worked well.
Yeah, that's what we're
Although
doing
because of a
with
few
Rise of Babel
changes,
as well. Um,
yeah, yeah, that's probably the best idea. So it's gonna be a 1 to 4 player or 1 to 5,
yeah, 1 to 4.
1 to 4. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, yeah, and so much solo board gaming lately. And I've been asked, I think for most of the games that I design now, to also make a solo version. Um, Mistwind was our latest, where I had to design the solo as well, and a couple of others
Yeah.
too.
Do you like making
People
solos? Do you
just
find it challenging? Do you play solo?
Yeah, I play a little bit of solo. Not as much now as I used to, but yeah, I enjoy solo games as well. And I mean, once you have the main game, I don't think it's a big deal to make it into a solo game, but to make it just not about points, that's kind of because you know, if you score 30 points, it's okay. If you score 40,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. If you score 50, it's excellent. That's kind of
Yeah, beat your own score.
I kind of want, you know, like a win or lose kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
You make it or you don't make it, or and that if that can change.
Yeah, I do
Um,
like. I mean, a lot of games
yeah,
that have beat your own score. I like. I really like Cartographer's Solo or Role Player Solo, both of which are beat your own score. But I totally know what you mean,
yeah.
and I prefer if there is an AI. Like one of my favorites is probably Dune Imperium, where you have
Oh, okay, I
this.
haven't tried that one.
It's very interesting because like actually there the minimum player count is 3. So if you're playing even a 2 player, you still play with an
Hmm.
AI. So it's still 3 players. Just one of them is a deck. And
Yeah.
what I think I like about that AI is, first of all, there's a couple of different ways you can play it. So it can be smarter or it can be more like dumb.
Yeah,
And
random. Yeah.
yeah, and at the same time, it's it feels like a player. So I really like it when an AI feels like a player, like it's blocking you in the right spots.
Yeah.
It's combating you in the right, the same amount that a player would. There's a little bit of randomness
Yeah.
to it, but you still feel like you're racing
Yeah. It
somebody or
feels,
something.
yeah, when it feels like you're playing someone. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
for sure. It's not just about a score, it's about how you how you play as well. How yeah.
yeah. What do you expect from a publisher? Like,
I like publishers that are interested and keep us updated. Um, I want to see where the design is going. So there have been games, and maybe you've had that experience too, that you sign it and it's coming out in 2 years, and you never hear
mhm.
anything else about it until it comes out. So I like to be not like, you know, okay, getting bugged all the time. Let's you know,
Mm,
but where they include you in the process and ask you for more decisions, and even little things like, you know, hey, can you also design a solo variant because we're interested in this, or what do you think about this change, or we tested it and some people suggested this or that. So
mm,
if you're in the loop, I think that it's not an expectation, but you know, it's nice to know where it's going, and maybe if they share images along the way, the artists that they choose, and so on. That's exciting too,
yeah.
to be in the loop.
How many projects would you say you have active at the same moment in time?
Uh, Tough to tell, and it varies, but I would say at least 5 at a time. And because I work with different code designers too, um, yeah, I'm not sure. I really have to sit down and think how many I currently have, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's more than 5 for sure now.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I've gotten the impression that you work really
yeah,
fast, like from seeing,
really fast.
yeah, really fast, from seeing
Yeah,
your game a couple of months ago. I won't mention the name because I don't know if I should yet.
yeah, yeah. It
But
hasn't been.
it hasn't
Yes,
been announced.
we
But
we gave away that we're kind of working together on something, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Like we're
since I saw that, the publisher mentioned, maybe let's do an expansion for the Kickstarter, or we'd like to, launch it with an expansion. And
yeah,
it was like a month later, you had done like 3 different modules, and
yeah.
everything was working well, and it was so cool to
Yeah,
see.
I think I work fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, you're in the groove, you know, like you have that on your mind all the time. And I just wake up one day and think, oh, I should do this, you know. So if you do it full time, it comes easy to just think of things. But it's I think the brain works that way too, because I told you my first game seemed so hard to make, and
Mm.
but then the second game was easier, and the third game was so much easier, and um, I was surprised how quickly I did, and even things like Sagrada. The game idea just came uh, while I was driving the car. Like I was driving a car, I had the game idea popped into my head. I drove directly to my friendly, uh, game shop, and bought 100 dice to test out the idea. So
Yeah,
um,
that's awesome. It's
when you do it full time, I think your brain is just in that
yeah, yeah.
you
It
know
gets you get
state
in the groove, and sometimes like
in the groove. Yeah.
sometimes ideas can come so much more formed than others. Like with me, I've definitely had experiences where um in fact, for me, it was kind of the opposite because the first game I ever tried doing, it felt like it came together so fast and so easy. It's still
Hmm.
unpublished, unfortunately, although it's a good game. Because
Hmm.
um, we talked with a publisher, we had interest, but then um, basically it's a game that I'd still love to have published, but it isn't yet. But it was
Right.
really easy to
And
do
maybe
because it
you
was
will one day.
yeah, yeah. Um, but then afterwards, like I tried doing a co-op game with my brother. That felt super hard. We did a month-long contest
Hmm.
for I don't know if you know about it's Eduardo Baroff. I don't know if you know him, but he did a
Yeah,
month-long
I don't think I do.
contest. We made a game for that, and it kind of worked, but it was it felt definitely more difficult. And then sometimes it feels so easy, like with
Yeah,
Rise of Babel, I feel like that was quite easy. Like we started it in February, and by like March, April, it was already like playing well, and it was kind of fun.
yeah,
We had like
yeah.
found the
And I
fun.
think like co-designers really help move
Mm,
things along, right? Because you co-designed that one as well. So
yes, yeah, no, it helps
um,
so much when you can
yeah,
play it
so
with somebody often, and you both
yeah,
have the same interests of we both want to make it good, and it's not
exactly.
it's
It's not like a playtester who just plays it once and says yes, I like it, or
yeah, yeah,
yeah, you had the vested interest in.
yeah. How do
Yeah,
you in partnerships? This reminded me because actually my friend Sam McDonald he mentioned, when working with Shem on games, how sometimes if they have something that they disagree on, they have to kind of remind
yeah,
themselves that they're both on the same team, and that they both want the best for the game.
right,
How do you deal
right.
with that? Like, are there moments when you and Daryl disagree, or how do you settle
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
things?
Yeah, and probably with Daryl, I would say that I have the most disagreements. Like I said, I prefer the like simpler, smoother. He likes the more complex. So I think you have to find the middle ground. Sometimes there were times where I felt like I didn't push hard enough my idea, and then wasn't quite happy with the outcome. So now I tried to push more. Um, but yeah, it depends on the. I'm also a very kind of like I how should I describe, maybe like a pacifist. I don't like arguing, and I don't like getting all worked up
Hmm.
because of something. So um, yeah, it's tough. But I mean, I think I chose my co-designers well too. Like we get along. I can say I'm friends with them, and it's not. It's interesting. Most of the people I co-design with, I've never met in person,
Yeah,
so they're from all over the place. But just we got along online, and we started working together.
yeah.
So yeah, it sometimes I think Darrow's the only person. Oh no, I have another co-designer that we do meet, but um yeah, but he's the one that I see the most, and I think it's, spending so much time together, you kind of allow yourself to say more and push back. And with the other ones, maybe you feel like, oh, okay, well, let's try this, and if it works,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so now most of your work is on Tabletop Simulator, I'm assuming. Um,
Yeah, and I think I prefer it that way. It takes so much time, making prototypes and cutting and pasting, and then there's companies that want to see a physical prototype, and that's when I make it and send it to them. But
yeah,
usually they're satisfied with playing it online, and I get the yes and no just from that.
yeah,
Yes or no,
yeah,
just from that.
yeah. No, it's so much
So
easier, and it's so much quicker to actually prototype and like to make changes. You can make changes in in 10, 15 minutes. You could make new cards if you
exactly, yeah, yeah.
have a
So
good.
I do prefer it this way now. It used to take a lot of time just making prototypes, and then, oh, that version didn't work.
Yeah,
Let's make another one.
yeah, yeah. And that now with
Yeah.
me, it's only for like conventions or if a particular publisher doesn't do online playtests, which is getting rarer and rarer. I
Yeah.
find that
Yeah.
like
There's still
there's
it's getting rarer for sure.
yeah,
I've noticed.
but and every time when I hear we want a physical prototype, I'm like, oh, why don't you have Tabletop Simulator? It's so much
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. What
I
is
agree with you 100%.
what is some advice you'd give somebody who wants to start designing games and wants to get into the industry?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to bring your idea to try it out. So tabletop simulator works great. That's kind of my first advice. Put it out there. And if you like building a prototype, sure, but you have to test it out. Test it out with someone, preferably that's not necessarily in the family. So you see the reaction of people when they play the game. If they're bored and maybe move on, and don't be afraid to scratch things off. Like, okay, if it doesn't work, just do something else, move on. It's tough to kill that idea and say, well, it worked good in my head, but it's not so good when you actually play it. So don't be afraid to just say, okay, move on, do
Yeah,
something else that didn't work. Yeah. But yeah, learn Tabletop Simulator and put your prototype out there and try to get it tested with people.
yeah. And I feel like
And I mean, for me, co-design worked really well. So if you have a buddy,
yeah,
someone who you can,
it's almost like the Jedi
yeah,
system, working with always two.
yeah, yeah,
No, it just makes so
yeah. There's
much
always two.
so much more sense or so much easier.
Yeah,
You to have that feedback and to
yeah,
be able to play through the game without having to multi-hand or imagine or playing with people that aren't as invested. I think that's great advice, and I
right.
think we're really lucky to have Tabletop Simulator because um because
It allows
otherwise
that. Yeah,
yeah, otherwise you're kind of stuck with the people around you, but there's so many communities and there's so many people you can find online that would play your game with
yeah,
you, and that's the
yeah. And
best
it's tough
way.
to get together with people that are just around you physically, right?
Yeah.
Because you need the place. You need to clean the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, it's
Yeah,
for kids, the house is a mess. Like I had a couple of play tests at my place, but like it takes me the whole day, just to prepare.
and there's also a lot of people who just don't live in a
So
place where you have like board game cafes, or you don't have
right,
that many people
yeah,
that are in the hobby, so just l- g- learning to
yeah,
do
and
it
then it
online.
doesn't matter where you are, you just
Yeah,
do it online,
yeah. Okay, well,
and and just have friends over when the game is done.
yeah, yeah.
Let them test the physical. Let them see the final beautiful
Yeah,
copy.
tell them that this was your first try. There
But
was
yeah,
like no iteration between this and like this is the way the idea came
right.
to you, right?
Yeah, yeah. We both know it takes a lot of playtesting to get it to a good spot.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I've ever had a game that didn't need a lot of changing before it got
Right.
good. But I've heard some
Yeah,
things.
because in your head it works.
Yeah, yeah,
It works so well in your head, and then you try it, and like, oh, okay, maybe
yeah,
I need to work a little bit more.
yeah. That's actually the last question I want to ask you before we finish up is
Yeah.
how much of the work do you do in your head, and how long do you kind of wait until you can try out the game outside of your head? Um, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does total make sense. But um, I would say I think about games a lot, and a lot of ideas come in my head when I'm not really thinking about them either. I sometimes I wake up with an idea, and but you do have to build it and put it out there. If it's physical copy or TTS, tabletop simulator, you have to try it out because it's not. Sometimes it's not as good as you think it is. But yeah, a lot of work goes in your head. Um, I couldn't give you like a quantity, like a percentage,
Yeah.
because
But
it's
do you rush to make it playable, or do you try and problem solve as much as you
yeah,
can
I
in
think
your
I
head?
do. Yeah, yeah, I do rush to make it playable.
Hmm.
If the idea is fresh in your head, I take notes sometimes if I can't. But with so many projects and so many ideas, you have to get it out there because it gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, yeah,
it's it's just if you don't put it out there, then yeah, it's most likely gonna get lost.
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. It was my pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure too, Ivan. Thank you.